There's some nights where we're a little bit undersized, and tonight's one of those nights. And we've got to do a better job as a team collectively trying to protect the paint and the rim. I thought we were way too spread out on the defensive end. Too many isolation plays that ended up being one-on-one at the rim. I'd rather have 3 people there than 1. And, that's an adjustment that we've got to make on nights when we're undersized. We did a better job keeping them off the offensive glass than the last time we played them. But transition defense, the matching up, I think they were disruptive, which they've been. Give Toronto credit. They're physical and pressure the ball and try to blow up screens, and they took us out of our offense a little bit, and I think we let that bleed into our transition defense. Some frustration offensively. We weren't sprinting back as well as we should, communicating as well as we should. And we've just got to keep the attention to detail as a team. So on to Minnesota, but if we can't find the ability as a group to overhelp to protect the paint and the rim and then scramble out after, the games are going to be really hard. Toronto didn't shoot it overly well from 3, but we didn't make them take very many of them. 32 threes in today's NBA is not enough. I thought also being spread out led to us with some cheap kind of reaching fouls, and they shot too many free throws. So overall, our attention to detail defensively has got to be better. On to Minnesota.
Is it the attention to detail, and maybe more specifically, what would you want kind of in that case from that closing lineup, like the all-young lineup?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's understanding the things that are important to us as a team and as an organization, and that's, can you go out and execute the basics of the game plan? It's not about shot making. It's not about points. Bryce and Johnny, for example, are 2 players that if when they started their careers, there's a checklist of things you're trying to explore about them, like, hey, can they do this? Can they do that? Shooting has been checked off for both of them. They could each miss their next 25 threes. I'll still believe that they can shoot. They've done enough to prove that. I care about the execution defensively, and it's about team defense and the things that you can control. It's not about guarding the best players in the NBA in space one-on-one. It's like, can you do the foundational things over and over and over and over again? And I think that's where the mindset has to flip, because when it is all the young guys out there, somebody's going to get to score a bunch of points. That's just the way the NBA works. When you play a bunch of young guys, somebody scores 18. And I don't care about who scores 18. We're trying to figure out all the other things. And so that's where the reward system is a little bit off, because the things that they maybe get praised for publicly, the things they get praised for on social media, are not the things that I or we care about. It doesn't mean I want them to miss when they shoot. I love it when it goes in, but that's not what I'm paying attention to. So I recognize that it's hard, because they're human and they're basketball players and they've been wired a certain way, and they're all really competitive and they have ego, and I mean that in a good way. You can't get to this level if you don't have some ego. But can they maintain the focus and the understanding of what they're actually being evaluated on? And it's not shot making.
Down the road, do you want small lineups with Lowry or KJ or whoever to be part of your toolbox? And how do you see that kind of unfolding?
Absolutely. I think there's moments where, because of, like, let's use Lowry as an example, because of his size, him as a 5 is really good for us offensively because it's a matchup problem. But defensively, we have to be able to hold our water, and that's protecting the paint as a group and not leaving Lowry or tonight KJ in a spot that maybe guys have left Walker in before. And we shouldn't leave Walker in that spot. Maybe you help a little bit less when it's Walker. That's a smart thing to do. But there's going to be moments where you need it in games. Playoff series that I've been involved in, there's always moments where going small is to your advantage. You may not want to do it for 48 minutes. You may not want to do it for 20 minutes, but there's an 8 to 10 minute window in a game where it's really good for you, but you're not going to get the net benefit on the offensive side if you can't hold your ground defensively.
Cody just looks less tentative than he did early in the year. How is that manifesting itself, and do you know what the source of that is?
I think you see it most with his pursuit defensively, not just dying on the screen and staying in the play. And on the offensive side, I think we see it where he's making plays with the ball downhill, driving it, bumping guy, like even the play against Castleton today where he drove it, shouldered him and shot the floater. Cody wouldn't have attempted that shot 2 months ago. And so whether it goes in or not, that's a signal of growth. The source, I would say it's probably a bunch of things. He's physically stronger than he was at the beginning of the season. He's adjusted to the speed and the physicality of the NBA much better now than at the beginning of the season. And then I'm sure there's a comfort level, has adapted to his surroundings, understands what's expected of him, understands when the moments are where you can go make a play and don't have to follow the script. I think early in a lot of young players' careers, they're running the play, they're not playing, if that makes sense. So I think it shows up in those two areas mainly. I think those are the plays where it stands out visually to me. But I think it's coming from a combination of all those other things.
The guys
you
who
had a
did
few moments in the third quarter you shared with Colin, where you sat next to him on the bench and even before he checked in. Can you explain the importance of having those conversations with him in a game where maybe he's not happy with his performance and what that's like as a coach?
Yeah, I think those are the moments where you tap into your human side. He's clearly frustrated. He's clearly not playing how he wants to play. Colin in particular wants it as bad or more than anybody that I know. And so it's about, just trying to be there for him as a human of, hey man, I get that this isn't going how you want, but there's still more to come, and how do you dig yourself out of it? I try to make him laugh a little bit, try to take his mind off of it some. It's not, those moments aren't for a big speech. No player wants that then. It's just kind of about maybe recognizing or letting them know that you recognize that they're struggling, and hey man, it's okay, we're not mad at you. This is not go sit over there, you stink. It's just hey man, you're struggling, you're trying hard. Let's focus on these couple of things. You're about to go back in a couple minutes. I see, and you guys to a degree get to see behind the curtain. And so, you know how hard they work. You know how bad they want it. You understand all the stress and things that come with this job for them. And so, I never want to fully just become a coach. You want to maintain the human element at different times because you do have personal relationships with these guys. And Colin was great about it, as he always is. I have no doubt that he'll play much better next game.
Do you look at lineup data differently with some of these different, more rarely used lineups than you do with your traditional starters or some of your traditional rotation? And do you look more at individual stuff, or how's that work?
Yeah, I try not to look at it because it is, like you said, rare. If there is a statistical piece of it that really jumps out, you know, where it's almost like gets flagged, like, hey, this is kind of crazy that they're doing this, maybe you go back and watch it and say why. Most of the time, I try to ignore it because I don't think that it's overly helpful because they just don't play enough together. I think more than that, you're looking at like 3-man combinations. These 3 guys in other lineups have played well together. Can they still play well together in this rare lineup?
Do you build lineups with that in mind? I'm trying to see something specific, like this late in the year?
It's a little bit more about exploring, if that makes sense. You have you're kind of going about it like a scientist, maybe. Yeah, you have a question. Hey, will this work, or will they be able to do X? You put it out there, you see what happens, and then you kind of adjust from there. Especially on nights like tonight where you're playing some different lineups. And so you look at the data, and then you go back and watch the film, because as we've seen many times, I don't think it was the case tonight, but there's some nights where you put a lineup out there and the other team just makes 4 amazing shots in a 5-minute stretch, and it makes the stats look a little weird. So when the things are rarely used, I think that's when we really try to like take the data, but then also really dig in on the film and make sure that we understand why.
Cool.
Thanks.